I would like to call the Village Board of Land and Special Meeting order for Monday, August 26, 2024 at 7 p.m. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, we got Salvatore Roby.
Here.
Grenier.
Here.
Blake.
Here.
Moore.
Here.
Newman. Here. Summers. Here. And Yates, all present. Thank you all for making arrangements to come to this special meeting. Statement of public notice.
Has been posted.
Item 5, discussion of possible action regarding public safety referendum. So, sure everyone is super excited to be discussing this yet again. As you may recall, the deadline to get final language agreeable by the Department of Revenue to the county is tomorrow. At our last meeting, we felt once again that we had some resolution on how we were going to do this. I think we had the impression that it was going to be allowable language. However, upon Trace investigating that a little bit further, they said not so fast. Basically, the concept of doing a percentage of something else is just not definitive enough in their minds. So we've got to take a different approach. So I immediately reached out to Trace again. We had some conversations. I reached out to Ellers and Wendy. We got some information. Also, to further complicate the matter, the net new construction numbers have come out from the Department of Revenue.
No video.
Which indicates that we are going to, once again, this is no surprise to anybody, I'm sure, but there's a pretty sizable amount of net new construction
It's there.
that we can raise the levy by.
Is it
As
is it
well.
a different link this time than the
It is also a requirement to have that allowable
there's only one
amount.
in there though?
Even though we haven't necessarily made a policy decision during our budgeting to take the full allowance, we still have to disclose the full allowance, whether we take it or not, as part of the question on the ballot. So that sets the tone right out of the gate. With a 13.68% possible increase in tax levy. Mr. Cameron, if you had a chance to read his memo, for lack of a better term, he's laid out some of the points from the discussions that I had with him regarding this. And he has made a recommendation that he feels was in line with our intent. Part of that may have come from, there's another spreadsheet. This is a very nondescript looking spreadsheet, but I think you all got one of. So in an effort, I think I brought this up or discussed this at our last meeting, maybe not, maybe it was just with them, but when we were trying to think about anticipating what our expenses might do over the coming 5 years, I thought it might be a good idea to take some historical data and then model that out over the next 5 years. If we assume that costs and expenses continue to, there might be an extra copy back there, sir, if you're looking for one. The logic was, you know, this at least gives us a guesstimate or a trend line for how our expenses for police and fire may look in the future over the next 5 years. So, Mr. Cameron's analysis that you see on the last page of your packet, that's this Eller's fancy looking spreadsheet. This is based on the assumption in his proposed language of an additional $237,000 referendum amount, basically. And how he arrived at that number was taking the increased costs over that next 5 years. So what's the added expense based on this projection over the next 5 years? And that's the number he plopped in there. I will add, I asked him a couple of times, and as recently as about 5:45 tonight to make sure that I understood this, because nobody from Ellers can be here. What that means is we would be looking to levy that additional $237,000 each and every year going forward. Until we either choose not to as a policy decision, or put forth a new referendum to ask for more, whatever. But that would be the number each successive year going forward. We're not gonna have net new construction gains really anytime in the next 5-6 years. After that, there will be some opportunities in the 2030s. But short term, we're pretty well done with the exception of Sewall's condos down here. That's probably gonna add about $18 million of equalized value. So there'll be some for that, but it's not gonna be like we've seen the last 3 years, which has been significant. Okay. So. To me, and then again, I'm just gonna do a brain dump here, and then you guys can ask questions and let me know what you think. If we take the full net new construction, which he's recommending, and I recommend, well, but we'll deal with that when we get to the budget workshops and approve a budget. But assuming that we do that, and assuming we stick with this number that he has in there, which you can see the additional percentage increase. That's gonna be, I think, that's a pretty tough sell. At 30%. That's my opinion. It also means that we're going to levy additional dollars above and beyond what we really need initially. Because really we're anticipating roughly a $45,000 increase in costs if we look at this projection spreadsheet. Each year, the first year it goes about 45, and then it's about 48,000 a year afterwards. Now, again, we have no control over what we get billed from Menominee Falls. We do have some control over our own police budget. But the fire bill is the bulk of the budget. So I did some quick math because I wanted to know if we did this, how the numbers played out. So 2025, if we levy the 237,000, I basically used the logic of, well, minus the 44,000 in increases, basically yields a surplus of about $192,000. Carry that forward into 26. You've got 2 years worth that you're making up for now, so you're up to 144,000 surplus. Down to, I should say. Well, next year it would be down to 96,000. Next year it'd be down to 48,000. And presumably, if everything is a perfect world and all these numbers magically seem to fall into place, in year 5 we break even. Right? But we're also now sitting on a surplus, an accumulated surplus of 481,000. So. That's a good position to be in, I guess. The question is, how many years going forward where your increased costs presumably start pulling from that surplus, right? So you have to start, now you're starting to draw that down. So. Is it 5 years? Is it 7 years? Is it 10 years? Is it, 3 years? Who knows what's gonna happen? Really. So if the board says, no, we like the language John gave us, go forward, that's the scenario. Okay,
And would this language be acceptable then, we're saying? That we're gonna get the Waukesha tomorrow?
if you guys all say, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, Patrick, let's go for it. Yes. Okay, did I miss anything critical there? If I summarize this adequately?
Yeah, it's. You got a couple options, either just. Accept the net construction increase and not potentially go to referendum now and potentially. Put that on hold for a little while, or the option Patrick just presented and see if we want to do the referendum on this.
So I also ran a couple of other numbers. I said, well. Geez, that seems like an awful lot to be. In surplus. Maybe it would be better if we did 150,000 like we initially talked about, rather than that 150,000 representing 25% of the public safety budget, that's just our number. And it's 150,000 each year. For 5 years. Instead of 31%, 31.5%, that works out to a 19.93%. If we did 100,000, that works out to an additional 13.28%. But again. If I'm following this all correctly myself, that's on top of the 13.68 that we already added from net new construction. So basically what the original proposal. Well, and maybe that doesn't actually, maybe those numbers don't work quite that way, but you've got a 13.68% increase to the levy due to the net new construction addition. And then you'll notice on his sheet, he's got this, so whatever levy amount you're gonna do divided by the estimated allowable levy, that gives you another percent. So it's 31.493% at 237. At 150, it would be 19.93%. At 100, it'd be 13.28%.
So what are these people vote for no?
Then we still can take the levy limit allowance,
Yeah.
the adjustment, and there are some additional GO debt allowances that can be taken, but those are all of that stuff. Most of our GO debt that is not utility related that we're allowed to put on the levy is going to come off the books in like 2026, 27. So we're kind of winding down to the end of all of that.
And with our net value going up, we can still borrow too.
Borrowing capacity still continues to get healthier and healthier. Yes,
See, so we would have to bail something out or do something.
yes.
So you have people that are still paying part of their water bill through the village, right? If they finance it.
Well, none of this is utility related.
No, but it's on the tax, this will go on the taxes, right? If it goes through.
Yeah, this is the levy. This is the tax levy, yes.
So when they finance their water, or not the water, the sewer part that they're getting at, that's a low percentage. A lot of people are paying that off too, right?
That amount is locked in. That's,
No, it's not.
So the water connection fee, the reserve capacity assessment. You were allowed to put that on your tax levy, tax bill. For up to 20 years at 2.25%, I believe. Yes,
So some people took that.
Yep.
And are paying that off.
yes,
So now we're gonna hit them with this, which we should have a little bit more.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I'm trying to, I don't want people moving because.
well, that's just it. So, I mean, we've seen. So that's the balancing act is. We have had some significant growth, which has allowed us to take some pretty significant net new construction allowance adjustments to our levy. But that. Those numbers, I mean. Every year, it ratchets up the tax bill, right?
And you have increased call for service, that's getting spent also in the way.
Right? Right. So, unfortunately. Taxes aren't popular, but they're necessary.
Oh, I agree, but these people are having a hard time. And nobody knows what's gonna happen in November either.
I understand,
So
and
I'm
I
on
don't
the fence right now.
totally understand.
Can we put it in layman's terms, not just for me, who is not a numbers person? But how would we present this to the community? Because you had an impact on me, Patrick, when you were initially talking about the levy. That it equated to $60 per 100,000 of assessed value.
Well, that was
It
a
is-
very, very rough calculation. I
Right,
mean, there's a
exactly.
formal calculation, but
So this proposal. Well, I guess you can't separate the levy increase from the referendum, really, because you're gonna get the levy increase either way. The net
well,
new
that's a
construction.
policy decision, but yes, we do not have to ask for the levy increase for. Net new construction, that's a board policy decision.
But the levy increase pertains to future years also. So you want to take it, so you can keep increasing each year also, as your possible.
Correct. So, I think Mr. Cameron's recommendation. Was maybe it makes sense to take the. Take the. Net new construction increase, and maybe we forego a public safety move for a year. See what happens, cause, yeah, it's. It's been tough out there.
Yeah.
And we don't know when it's gonna get any better. And, I don't know many people that are getting 20, 25, 30% raises. To keep up. So it might be. A tough ask, across our very diverse. Constituency, from a. Economic status, we got a very wide range here. But whatever decision we make, it's gonna affect everybody.
You got people on social security, you got people making, $400,000 a year easy to get into some of those condos and stuff and. Or houses, if you're it. So it's like,
I get it, but we also have the challenge of. Running a village and
Services.
and the
No, I-
expenses that are associated with that, and that's the hard part to get people to understand. Public safety, everybody gets, I think, because you see it day to day, it's fire protection, police, right, EMTs. But there's all the other stuff, just maintaining the buildings, maintaining the vehicles, maintaining parking lots, maintaining roads. Paying our staff,
I agree.
it's a lot, and those are all going up as well.
But this is strictly higher in police. This increase.
Public safety, a lot, yeah.
Oh, what positive, it's, where positive. So. That's the good stuff. Last years.
So, that's a logical conclusion, however. The way our contract with Menominee Falls works is every 5-year period, there's an adjustment. The adjustment is a function of Menominee Falls area versus Lannon area, that doesn't change, right? Their population and our population. They run that calculation through and come up with a percentage that we pay of Menominee Falls annual fire budget, which we have zero control over. So that percentage with our population growth, hopefully Menominee Falls has been pacing along with us enough that we don't see an increase in that percentage. But that could theoretically happen. And that adjustment, I believe, that's coming up real soon.
Years ago, it's every 5 years, right?
Yes.
Thought it was just a couple of years ago that they looked at that, and we were pretty much even at that point. Theirs went up as much as,
Okay.
so
They've got more land, they're gonna be bigger.
yeah, they're still.
Good, over time, yeah. I mean,
It's still a lot more.
so hopefully it's gonna stay the same, but. Or go down.
Apartment projects in the falls, they're adding
Right.
considerably more than land, so.
Yep, and they have, you know, and they have a new chief, you know, we know they have a new chief, he just came in recently, seems to be a really sharp guy, knows what he's doing. But, you know, they did just hire a bunch of, new firefighters using the, safer grants, I think, safer funding, I think it was called. But I was asking him at National Night Out, and he did say that they've already been accounted for in the future going beyond that grant period. 'Cause that grant's only for like 3 years. And I asked him, I'm like, well, what's gonna happen after this thing's over, and you have these 17 officers or firefighters, how do you pay for it? He's like, I actually looked at that when I was considering the job, and that was part of my decision, was because they apparently already got it handled somehow from a budgetary standpoint.
There's really two questions. Do we want to do the levy and let them off?
The referendum.
Referendum, yeah.
Yes, I mean, ultimately, that's what it comes down to, but I wanted to make sure that everybody had all of this. I know these are a lot of hard numbers to kind of digest. I don't know how to make it any simpler.
Cut that in half. Take you $125,000. That's a whole lot. Better off than 237.
It is.
That's easier to sell for the population of land. $250,000 is pretty stout.
Was percentage that you're.
Well, it would be half of it, so.
Well, yeah, 150,000 is 19.93%, 100,000 is 13.28, so you could assume it's gonna be in the 16-ish range, whatever is a percentage. So let's see, 120, I can tell you exactly. It's gonna be 125,000 divided by the assumed levy, 752, 545, 16.6%.
Far better. I think 30s are hard to go.
Yeah, even in good times.
Right.
I think
Yeah,
that's hard. So.
this one never.
When would be the next time,
I liked it.
I'd say this passes, when is the next time? holding safety.
You can do it anytime you want.
Next year.
So there's.
That was one thing I was gonna tell everyone is you can play with whatever number and then after a couple of years. You don't think it keeps up with the cost of everything, you can always take advantage of the referendum and adjust the percentages.
Yeah, I would suggest it is. My strong opinion that if we do. As a board, still want to push forward with some form of public safety referendum question. That we seriously. Consider adjusting this number downward. Significantly. To a reasonable level, reasonable is subjective, I guess.
We've got so many other needs physically other than fire and safety also. You just look at the roads. And other things that we do. Building. I think, I would make a motion that we go ahead with the referendum and we look at an increase of $125,000.
We have a motion, do we have a second? Assuming we'll have some discussion, but maybe not. Discussion, questions?
I understand Anna's concern. As we all know, it's financially, it's tough out there. Groceries are not going down yet. Gas is starting to trickle down, but not by a lot, but it's starting to too. And people have their water bills or their water tax levies been assessed. Their taxes, as far as their sewer, that should be done. Because that was in 1997 and that was 20 years that that's done.
Yeah.
That's done. They don't have that anymore. So I can understand that, but I don't think. I agree with Jared that I don't think we can do, or even with you, Patrick, I don't think we can. Do a $31,000 assessment. I think that's just. That's gonna hit too, it's not gonna settle well. It's just not gonna settle well, and we are a small community. We are not as large as Menominee Falls, and as he referred to here as Twin Lakes in Kenosha County. Well. I was born and raised in Kenosha County. I know Twin Lakes. It's a small community. It's a very small community, so for them to word it like this. That makes sense, but I think we have to be very cognizant of people's finances out there. Now, I'm talking with people. I've heard people say that they're more than willing to have their taxes raised for public safety. They're willing to do that. But those people that I talk to are waiting to see what you're gonna raise. Right,
And the difference between Twin Lakes and us is if you looked at Twin Lakes, they were less than 1%
Correct.
levy adjustment in the first place, and then they asked for a reasonable amount on top of that. And the way this is drafted, I agree with you, Patrick, this would never go because you're already raising taxes by 13.68%, which is allowed, and that's fine. But then to come in with another, yeah, I mean, obviously Jerry's motion for 125 is a much more reasonable ask. Because when you are a voter in the voting booth, you're gonna look at this and you're gonna go, wait, you did how much? And you want how much more? So, I still feel like this referendum is gonna be a hard lift. But I would support having it if the rest of the board does.
is that any way, Teresa? I don't know if we can put it in the referendum, but that people would understand. How many dollars gets assessed to their property taxes,
Yeah.
because that's what they're looking at.
That was my
percentage means nothing
question
to
to
them.
that, yeah. the
They want to see
translation.
what the final number is, it's gonna be assessed to their taxes.
So that will be, if you've gone and looked at any of the, like, the websites that we've kind of referred to recently, like Richfield and Germantown, who are doing this. We'll have Ellers do that assessment and it will show what the impact is going to be for, $100,000 house, a $250,000 house, $500,000 house. This is what the increase represents from the referendum. I don't presume it'll include it. Maybe, it will, but I don't think it will necessarily include the net new project.
But I just know that people are looking at the bottom dollar that comes up. You know, how much am I gonna pay for this? How much am I gonna pay for that? That's how I look.
Absolutely, and I think. The tough position we're in is when you go to the gas station and. You don't get to vote whether or not you agree with the price you charge. When you go to the grocery store, you don't get to vote. When you get your electric bill, do you get any say on how much they're increasing your electric bill? The tough position we're in is. There's a say. And if the voters say no, then we're gonna have to figure out how to do it without it.
But they did bring it up, when we had our last budget meeting. That was brought up, people wanted to see more public safety. It was mentioned at that point, but we didn't figure it out, so. It was proposed, I know I mentioned it, that we need to throw back in their laps to decide. Are you willing to do this? Are you willing to, you know,
So the other option, I suppose, and I hadn't really thought this through, but just rattling around. You know, if we just. We do have borrowing capacity. And if we don't feel that we're able to provide the services that we need, and we don't have it in our levy, I suppose theoretically, we could borrow. To pay for it.
Yeah, except that. That's normally for capital expenses and stuff, you shouldn't be borrowing to operate.
Shouldn't be, but if that's the position we get in, we can.
Oh, definitely.
And then ironically, that gets put on the levy.
Oh, yeah.
but how many times did you borrow? To pay?
To your capacity.
Yeah, you do it once, you do it twice, you do it 3 times, you need all the bills, I just. I guess I would like to not borrow, if we don't have to,
Absolutely. Oh, we've always operated that way.
you know,
Always.
So what if they shoot it down? Then what do we do? Bring it back
Oh,
again
yeah.
next year?
Maybe, yeah, bring it back next year. We see, budget time, see how things go.
See what the vote is.
Yeah, you still get the 13%, but if that doesn't help the, budget that is anticipated to grow in the public safety.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, well, let's go for it.
Any other discussion or questions? Grace, do you have anything you want to add? Any tidbits of wisdom for us? No.
Like the timing of this, like how much time we have between now and November, are we comfortable with that, getting the word out, I guess, yeah.
It'll be on.
But the word all too early, I guess it's. Yeah, then it's gonna be you did.
Well, should we have to have another
Yeah.
meeting in,
Yeah, we should have a public.
in here or?
Yeah, we should have a public information meeting for sure, but we also need to get some of those data points pulled together from Ellers.
We have to be careful that we can't be advocating against the board.
Right.
Right, then it goes to Terry's point, you can at least put flyers, whatever you're gonna do it, this is for $100,000, this is what it is for that. Can't be on the referendum itself, but all of the information flyers and stuff. So, trust that individuals take.
cause that's what.
Yeah, so we can do the mailing, we can do the webpage like we discussed. Do a civic alert, maybe about a public information meeting to make sure people get a chance to come.
I think
So-
doing that probably more like in October, closer to the referendum than doing it. To Don's point, if we did it now,
Oh,
people
no.
are gonna forget.
Oh,
But do it more towards October, by that point, we will have already had our budget meetings.
Well, when are we gonna do the first workshop? Tomorrow? Right?
In September. Mid to end.
Okay, and then we usually do the second one 2 or 3 weeks after that.
Yeah, it's like the beginning of October, second week of October-ish. Cause that's when a lot of the other numbers start coming in.
So would we prepare 2 budgets then?
You have to prepare like the normal budget based on, we don't have the referendum money.
Right.
Because.
Right.
The election is the week before our budget approval.
Right.
Public hearing, so you kind of have to have both things
Ready to go.
ready to go.
Yep.
Because you won't know until a few days before the meeting what's there.
Any other discussion? Okay, so, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I will forward the information that we determined tonight to John Cameron, and he can start getting, guys, people finalize the garbage, make sure it's good to go. We need to run that. You, the loan numbers. I'll double check. on it.
13 plus.
Okay, and Brenda, who sends that language in? You?
I'm not sure, I've never done one, but once I have that language.
Yeah, another first for you.
I
I thought you would get all these amazing experiences in the little old village of Lane,
Well, she's treasurer, come on, it's her money.
right?
Okay.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Certainly.
Motion seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries to adjourn. Okay, I know, Andy,